Hey guys, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. This is a compilation video for Easter and Spring DIYs. Since I have a lot of new subscribers since these videos were made, I decided to go ahead and create a compilation so that you are able to see all the creations I've made from last spring and Easter 2023. Hope you enjoy this video, and as always, I appreciate a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Let's get on with these projects. So for the first DIY, I am taking one of these wooden bunny decor pieces from Dollar Tree. This is by Crafter Square. I love these little shapes. You can do so much with them. I also took one of these flat canvas panels, also from Dollar Tree, and I did give this a good coat of paint by DIY. This is the color Apothecary, such a pretty spring color. And then I went ahead and used some plaster color chalk paint by Waverly and painted this bunny, this entire bunny this color. I like this nice neutral base as well. It's very versatile and goes with so many different things. I'm going to be using some decorative napkins to decoupage this bunny. And the napkins I will be using came from either Marshalls or TJ Maxx. They do have a nice assortment of napkins, decorative napkins for each season. So if you ever make it out there, take a look at their napkins and you'll see all the cute designs that they have out. This was created in 2023, so those napkins are from last year. But every year they come out with something new, so definitely check those out. I did use some decoupage medium Mod Podge and use that to adhere the napkin. And it's important to have a bright background, which is why I painted this the plaster chalk paint. You can also use white chalk paint, but a nice bright base is always a good idea when you are decoupaging with napkins or paper even, just because the brightness does show through and it allows the image to be a lot more brighter, more visible, and just stands out a lot better. Once I have the paper or the napkin attached to the bunny, I wait for it to dry, and using this handy dandy nail file, I went ahead and filed off all the excess paper. Now you can also cut around the bunny for ease, and then go ahead and file off all the excess using like a sanding sponge or like a mini finger sander that you can get from Dollar Tree, not Dollar Tree, from like Amazon, places like that. But a nail file is also very handy to have. I'm sure most of us have this in our, in our bathroom. So then I decided I was going to go ahead and paint the ears using the same Apothecary color, which is really pretty, but I did want to add a little bit more dimension to this, and I end up covering the ears and the tail, and you will see that here shortly. I will end up using some moss to cover those areas, so it really is not necessary to paint those areas. I used a pack of clothespins. I didn't use the entire pack, but you will be needing some clothespins. And what I did was took them apart, just simply removing the little spring, the little like metal spring that attaches both parts of the clothespin. And you're gonna end up with two separate pieces, and I will utilize both parts. I took this IOD stamp. It's the Kindest Regards stamp, and then use some black ink to just stamp over that canvas panel, just for a nice added background. And again, this is just adding more dimension, more layers. It's always fun to do this just to create more added interest to your, decoration, to your DIYs. And I like this script writing because it makes a really nice background for a lot of DIYs. And if you're into like French country, French farmhouse, anything like that, or just into vintage type decor, this stamp is perfect for creating a nice background. So once I had my background paint stamped on, I went ahead and added the moss like I said I would to both ears as well as the tail. And again, this just adds some dimension, some contrast with that nice deep green color. And it's also very fitting to spring because of the moss. So I think it's just really pretty all around. But you can also do without it, just keeping it like that paint color. I think that's also nice as well. But the options are endless, and you can create this and customize this any which way you like to make your heart happy. So we're going to continue on just adding the moss, and then once I have all the moss attached, I'm going to give it a nice little trimming with a pair of scissors, just giving it a little haircut. The trimming just allows for any of the excess moss to be cut off so that you don't have like a whole lot of fallout going on, and you don't have like a big thick pile of moss. So that's always a nice thing to do, is just trim off the excess moss. So taking the clothespin that I took apart, I decided to go ahead and do a dry fit, sort of trimming off the outer parts of this canvas panel. I did want to add that little bit of depth because the panel is very flat, and by adding the clothespin, it not only adds like the color to it, the texture of the wood, but it also adds depth to this, giving this a little bit more of a look of like having some looking more substantial. So it kind of, it just takes it up a notch in my opinion. So once I had all the clothespins attached using some hot glue, I did attach my bunny piece to the center of this canvas, which I might add was just a perfect fit in between all the clothespins. And I just took some Titebond to attach that with a combination of hot glue just for the instant hold. And to add a little bit more embellishments, I did take this cute little neutral farmhouse ribbon from Dollar Tree and just made a simple bow and dovetailed the ends and then hot glued that around the neck. Think that is a cute little touch, just for more of that farmhouse feel. I had this little beaded napkin ring in my stash. I just took some pieces from it that I wanted to use. They had these little like leaves attached, which I thought was perfect to just embellish the ribbon with. And I also took one of those beads and then attached it to the center of my bow, and then hot glued those little leaves to the outer parts. And again, this is just layering on the pieces just to give this little bit more embellishing, and also just to give it more of that interest. So I really love like all of the neutrals coming together, and like I said, this is something that's easily customizable if these colors aren't your preference. If you wanted something more colorful, you can certainly swap out the ribbon, swap out the paint color or the napkin choice. I mean, you can definitely alter this however you like to fit your own decor. So I am repurposing this wooden hanger. It came from like a blanket that I purchased, and I just kept it in my craft stash. I knew I would do something with it at some point, and I decided I was going to make this little canvas panel like a hanging decor with that little wooden hanger. I think it just adds a nice little cute and quaint design to this wall decor. And all I did was took that same ribbon that I used for the bow and just cut strips and then hot glued that around the wooden hanger and onto the panel, just making sure I attach it on both sides. And also being careful to make sure that the ribbon pieces are equal, like they're the same length. Otherwise, you're going to have like a lopsided looking sign, and we don't want that. So just make sure that you measure out the equal amount or the length of ribbon for each side, and that you hot glue them equally, like more balanced, if that makes any sense. Well, I really enjoyed making this one. I wasn't exactly sure where my vision was with this. It just all kind of came together, but I really love the outcome, and I hope you guys like it too. For the next DIY, this one is a really cute wall hanging sign, or it can even be like a door hanger. I used one of these little wood shapes, the bunny butt that came from Dollar Tree. I believe they do have them out this year as well. So if you can get your hands on these this year, then this is a really cute DIY idea for you. I took this Waverly Antique Wax and just using a wet wipe, I went ahead and spread that over the wood sign. You can also use a paintbrush and then wipe it off using a wet wipe, whatever works for you. So I went ahead and just did this to the entire wood piece. I took some folk art paint color in pink. I don't remember the exact color of it, but it's like a blush pink color, and I went ahead and just brushed that over the tail. I thought that would be a cute little bunny tail color. I then took some white chalk paint, and using a chip brush, I did a dry brush over the entire piece, just giving it a distressed look. And I went pretty heavy-handed here, just leaving certain parts of the wood and the stain to come through. I then took the spackling tool and scraped off a lot of the paint, the white paint color, while it was still damp. And that's important if you are trying to remove as much of the paint, is to make sure that the paint is slightly wet so that you are able to lift off a good amount of that color. I wanted some of that wood color to come through and have a nice rustic feel to it. Taking the same pink color, I took a sponge dauber and just sponged on some of this pink color over those little metal wording. And then I took the Antique Waverly wax and just dipped my finger into it and then outlined the paws and the entire wood piece. Just adding a nice contrast and making this, the shape of this bunny stand out a little bit more. And I really like the idea of highlighting like the paws and the entire shape of this piece just to make it pop a little bit more, and it just makes it more defined. I then took the same antique wax and just using my fingers, just ran it across the words, just highlighting different parts, focusing primarily on the outer edges and the corners, and just adding some distressing and some antique look to this sign. Sort of making it more dirty so that it doesn't look super new. I am creating this to look rustic, and so this is perfect. Next, it was time to glue the wording over this little bunny butt. I used some Tite Bond adhesive and a little bit of hot glue just for that instant hold, and then just attach that to this little sign. It's the perfect message for the season, so I think it's coming out really cute. And I'm gonna go ahead and make a little pocket for this. This is going to hold some florals. This will essentially be like a wall pocket or a door style pocket sign. And all I did was took this piece of scrap fabric. You can use any fabric you have on hand. This is just some muslin fabric. And I just created a pocket, folding the sides inwards and forming a shape to fit the back of this bunny butt. Just making sure that I had everything folded, lined up properly, and you do want to make sure that you leave enough give because you don't want this to be glued down completely flat. That's a mistake I made when I first started this. I did have to go back and correct my mistake and detach the fabric piece from the wood, and then start over by adding a little bit of that room right there. As you can see, I did have to create like a spacing on each side just so I had space for the florals to fit inside. I did use a piece of pool noodle like this, and I cut that in half. I added one to the base, you know, to fit snugly to the bottom of this pocket. And this is going to hold my florals into place. It's just like using floral foam, but this works out just as fine. And here, you know, I'm just making sure that everything is fitting well so that I have a good, stable area to go ahead and stick my florals into. And once I cut all my pieces apart, I went ahead and started arranging it in the way that I wanted my display to look. So I used a combination of those pink flowers. I don't recall the name of the flowers, and these ferns. Now all of these are from the Dollar Tree. So I started off with the tallest pieces, which are the ferns. That's sort of gonna lay the foundation. And then I added all of the smaller, shorter pieces to the front and then just sort of fluff that out. This would also be pretty if you added like some draping or drooping type of florals or greenery. That would be a cute idea as well. But I do like the look of this where everything is sort of like standing upright. I also added these greeneries right here. Again, I don't have like the technical terms for any of these. All the names that they have for these are pretty generic, you know. As you know, if you shop at Dollar Tree, like they pretty much call a lot of the florals the same thing. It's very generic. They just usually refer to it as greenery. So you can pick any type of leaves, greeneries, flowers, anything like that that you think would look nice in this wall pocket. But I thought that the nice pink color with the green really looks springy to me. So I just went on and just continued to arrange my flowers until I was completely happy with how it turned out. So using the other half of that pull noodle that I cut when I split this in half, I went ahead and used it as a filler to add some bulk to the back of this and just stuck that in to the top. And that way the flap of that fabric piece wouldn't just dangle and, you know, not have any kind of shape to it. So I did add that piece of pull noodle just for some structure. And then using some hot glue, I just glued down the fabric piece that was sort of just laying there and just made sure everything was, you know, adhered. And this is optional, but I went ahead and just filled those holes with some hot glue and then painted over those. I love how this one came out. Look how cute it is. Super easy to make and very affordable. And you can find all of these items from Dollar Tree. Let me know what you think in the comments down below of this DIY. So now it's on to the third DIY of this video. I am going to be making an Easter wreath, Easter/spring wreath. This can definitely be kept out just for the whole season of spring. This one is super easy as well. I just used one of these straw wreaths that I picked up from a thrift store, and I did keep I believe I did keep the plastic on it. I took some of this hula skirt, which I had on hand, and just also used some of the speckled eggs from Dollar Tree, as well as an assortment of flowers. Now, this hula skirt is basically going to act like straw, as if you were using like raffia. Now, if you have raffia on hand, you can use that, but the hula skirt is a lot more flexible and easier to work with, in my opinion. So all I did was just took a handful of it and just simply shaped it around the shape of this wreath, and then just trimmed off all the long pieces, and then just use hot glue to attach the hula skirt to my wreath. Now this is just going to be the first layer. This is going to be the base of this wreath. And again, it's just to add some texture and to make it look like very springy, sort of like a nest, if you will. And once I had all of the hula skirt pieces glued down, you just want to make sure that you trim off all of the long dangly pieces. We don't want any of that mess. I went ahead and took this pack of speckled eggs and just started to hot glue them to the inner part of this wreath. Now, I went back and forth on deciding on the best placement for the eggs. I didn't know if I wanted to put them on the top of the wreath, but I think I did do like a dry fit, so to speak, over the wreath, and I wasn't sure if I felt like it just wasn't going to work out in terms of like hold. So I just went ahead and just glued it to the inner part. I think that it nestles in a lot more easily into the inner part of this wreath and will hold on a lot better. So I went ahead and hot glued all of my eggs to the inner part. And then I decided that I was going to embellish the remainder of this wreath on the top of it using a variety of greens like these floral pieces or these fern pieces, fern picks, as well as a combination of like different types of flowers. I don't exactly know the names of these flowers, but they're just a lot of different combinations of pinks and greens and creams and things like that. This was super easy. It's just really layering everything. Like I said, it's always good to start with the bigger piece as your base. I started off with the hula skirt as my base and sort of like a nest. And then I used these green picks to add a second layer, and then that will be a nice foundation to hot glue all of the smaller floral pieces. And this is where I get to sort of section off different parts of this wreath. I do like to have some sort of balance when it comes to making wreaths. Now, when I do make some wreaths, I purposely do like asymmetrical style where, you know, I might have it off balance, and I don't always do, you know, do the same thing to each side. I might do one side only and leave the other side blank, but in most cases, I do like to have symmetry. So I like to balance off, like if I add a flower to one corner, I like to bring that same color over to the other side, and so on and so forth. But again, this is all up to your own eye. Like if whatever looks pleasing to you is how you should arrange your wreath. And that wraps up this wreath DIY. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I think it came out super adorable. I love the speckled eggs and the flowers. More ideas. Hope you enjoy. Please leave me a thumbs up if you do. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get on with the projects. For project number one, I am taking one of these wreath forms in the shape of a bunny from the Dollar Tree, as well as some florals that I had on hand, also from the Dollar Tree. This was from last year. but they should be carrying these again. I'm not really sure. I haven't bought much new florals this spring, so I'm not quite sure if they have this again for this year. But you can take any type of florals or any colored flowers that you prefer and use it for this DIY. I will be using zip ties to secure the bunches of flowers to this wreath form. You can definitely use chenille stems or jute string or any other type of string or anything that can secure or fasten these flowers to your wreath base. But I find that using zip ties is the easiest and probably the more secure way of doing it without having to do too much work. So basically, I just took those 3 bunches of this white flower and bent the stems down so that it would shape to the shape of the circle of this wreath base. I just wanted to make sure it was following the outline of the circle part of this wreath base, making sure that you have your flowers dispersed evenly so you don't have too much, clusters in one spot and having bald areas in another spot. But if you find that this does happen to you and you have some random spots where it's sort of missing some flowers, you can definitely take some from the areas that are a little bit more fuller, which I will eventually be doing. You can either just peel them off from the little stems that they are attached to or cut them off and then glue them into the random areas that is a little bit more on the sparse side. So here you'll be seeing me sort of fluffing it out and arranging the flowers and the stems in a fashion where it's sitting a little bit nicely over this wreath base. And as you can see in this corner here, I had a little bit too much of that greenery. So I did cut off a few of the stems and then just glued those in other areas or attached them to the other areas that was lacking. Here I'm just taking more of the zip ties and then attaching those stems to that area. But if you have areas where you just need to maybe insert a couple petals or what have you, you can just definitely pluck off those petals from the stems and just glue them into place. Next, I got the idea of decorating the ears using some of this polka dotted burlap ribbon that came from Dollar Tree. And this is a wider ribbon, so what I did was fold the ribbon over the ear, just making sure to add hot glue to the edge of the ribbon and then folding it over each other so that it adheres to each other. And you're basically going to outline both ears using this ribbon, just following the shape of it. So I thought that this ribbon coordinated well with the white florals that I use for the wreath. But you can definitely use whatever colored flowers you want and any coordinating ribbon that you choose. This is what I had on hand and I decided to just use what I had. And I think it turned out really good, in my opinion. It's a pretty simple DIY, but I think it makes a very cute impact. I decided to add a little more embellishment to this wreath using some of these 3D Easter decor picks. I had this on hand already. They came from the 99-cent store originally. And they're in this white color. Some were eggs and some were bunnies. And they had this buffalo check ribbon already attached to the skewer. At first, I went ahead and glued or inserted the picks or the skewer into the wreath, but I found that it wasn't really sticking to the wreath very well, and it was shifting around and falling off. So I decided to just cut it down short and add some hot glue to the actual pieces as opposed to adding the whole stick into the wreath. And I felt like this worked better and it actually stuck on a lot better than the original idea. And again, if you wanted more color, you can definitely add something more colorful, like colorful eggs. Dollar Tree has speckled eggs if you wanted to add those. If you wanted to add a different type of embellishment, you could do that as well. But I thought that the white and along with the whole theme I had going on here, it really coordinated well together. So I just went with it and just decided to use up these picks. So that does it for this very simple but cute bunny wreath DIY. I hope you would give this one a try. It was super easy to do. And all these supplies came from the Dollar Tree. Let me know what you think in the comments. I am taking one of Dollar Tree's bunny wood plaques, and I already had this beaded wood trim all around, which I thought was a super great deal. For $1.25, most of the work is already done for you. I just cut off that little jute twine hanger. I will be decoupaging some of this napkins that came from Marshall's, I believe, as well as this wreath that came from Dollar Tree. Initially, I was deciding on how I wanted to arrange this wreath. I couldn't decide if it should be over the wood plaque or if it should be underneath. I also took a jute rope and dismantled it. I just sort of split all of the pieces apart and I created a braided rope hanger. And you'll see that later on in the finished look. Then I went ahead and just took some of the Snow White Waverly chalk paint and I gave this whole piece a good coat. Next, I'll be taking the napkin in this lavender print and separating the plies. You basically want to get it down to just one ply. You don't want to have all the extras that it comes with. So if you want your design to come through much brighter, you'll definitely want to paint your background a bright white color or some background color. So first thing I'm doing is taking some of this Mod Podge and just spreading that lightly over the bunny cutout. Just making sure I don't get any on the outer parts of that bunny because I only wanted the bunny to have this napkin design on it. So here you'll see that I'm taking a little bit of water, just sort of creasing the edges outside of that bunny, just so I can get somewhat of the shape outlined from this napkin. And I'm not trying to be super precise or careful about it because later on I will file it down if need be. But right now I'm basically just removing any excess napkin. Once all of that has dried, I went ahead and took more Mod Podge and just gave it a good top coat just to protect the napkin. Next, I decided to take some elephant chalk paint by Waverly. Using a wipe, I just went ahead and dabbed some of that elephant chalk paint over the beads. and then rubbed some of it off. I kept doing that process. And I also went ahead and took it up to the middle section of that wood cutout, just sort of blending everything together. Here I was definitely trying to make sure that I was getting into each bead in between all of those spaces. And you can definitely go darker or go lighter with this in whichever direction that you want to go. Or you can even use a different type of paint or different colored paint to distress this. But I thought using this elephant chalk paint would be a little different, since we tend to use like antique wax more often when it comes to distressing. So this gives it just more of a different look. I think it lends well to the French farmhouse look, in my opinion, or the French country look. And personally, I favor the French country look. There's just something about it that I really love. So I thought making this wreath, is what I'm calling it, in the way that I'm making it, it just sort of goes well with that whole look, with the lavender and with the grays and everything. So here I'm just using some Titebond glue because the piece of wood that attached to that bunny outline actually came off, so it needed a little bit more securing, so I just used Titebond. Next, it was time to create the base of this wreath using that jute rope, which I braided into that hanger. I went ahead and made it into that shape, just allowing a little bit of allowance at the bottom to hang off the wreath, and creating that loop at the top, so that will essentially be the hanger. And it also gives it a little bit more added interest with a braided look, as well as some texture. Next, I took some sprigs of florals. This is lavender from Walmart. And I just cut those up into some smaller pieces. And I just started to play with the placement of how I wanted them to look. I also got those yellow florals from Walmart as well. I thought it added a little bit of brightness and contrast to this wreath, since everything going on was purple with the decoupage napkin as well as those lavenders. I thought adding the yellow would add some contrast into this wreath. When that part was finished, I went ahead and took my bunny wood plaque and I glued it into place using some hot glue. And then I just continued to fluff out my florals, making sure they were sort of flanking each side of this plaque evenly. And I felt like it was lacking at the bottom, like it needed something, so I took more of Dollar Tree's picks. This is one of their greenery bouquet, is what they're calling it, and just cut those up. And I felt like it added a nice contrast with the green, the light greens, and the whites. And I just sort of did the same thing, gave it a balanced look, just adding one to each side. And once those florals were glued into place, I felt like it needed some type of bow or ribbon. And that little blank spot in the middle was the perfect spot to put a ribbon. So I went ahead and used one of Dollar Tree's jute ribbon in this design here, and just made a simple shoestring bow, and then just use a piece of jute string to tie it in the middle. And then I hot glued that into place. Now I felt like it needed another layer of ribbon, so I just took a piece of jute twine, tied it into a simple shoestring bow, and then layered that on top of the other ribbon just using hot glue. Next, I felt like the bunny needed a little more dimension. So I took one of these mini pumpkins from fall from the Dollar Tree, and I just cut the stem off, and I used it as a bunny tail, and I thought that worked out perfectly. And that just gave it the right amount of dimension that this needed to make this a little bit more cohesive with everything else that was going on. So next I did want to add some type of wording. I decided to use my stamps. This is from Michael's many years ago. I'm sure they still have it, but it's really neat because you can create any type of words that you want. And just using some of Tim Holtz Distress ink, I spelled out the word spring, and voila, this is the finished look. I am very pleased with the outcome. This came out cuter than I expected. And I hope you enjoyed this one. It was very easy to do, very affordable to make, and very customizable to your own preference. Let me know what you think. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got some great ideas. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Take care.